Our scripture reading this morning is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verses 18 and 19. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Thus ends the reading of the scripture. First of all, happy spring. When Tom came in this morning, he said, it's the perfect spring day. And I think he's right. The sun is shining, it's nice and warm, and the rain has stopped. You have a lot to be thankful for. It is the perfect spring day. As this time of the year approaches, we develop an urge to get everything in our homes and outside in our yards cleaned up and in order. After the long winter months, short days, and long nights, all that time of being cooped up in the house, we often experience a little boredom, time when we sometimes get to feel a little antsy. Then signs of spring start to appear, and we all begin to get a little more cheerful. Trees start to bud. We hear the sounds of birds singing. The daffodils and tulips are in bloom. Cherry trees, dogwood, and azaleas come out, and we marvel at their beauty. It puts us in a good mood, doesn't it? Makes us want to freshen up things a bit, do a little spring cleaning. My mother would always, and still does, drive my sister and I crazy each year with her spring cleaning habits. She has to take all the dishes out of the cupboards, even those that never get used, wash them and neatly put them back into place, pull the beds out from the walls, dust and vacuum underneath, get rid of all the cobwebs and the clutter. I see some of you shaking your head, so you do this too, or maybe you grew up doing it. I don't know that anybody does it much anymore, but my mother does. But I want to talk about clutter for a moment, what we think of as clutter. Most of us probably have a junk drawer or two in our homes. If you're like me, you have one in your kitchen. It's that drawer at the bottom that you just throw everything into that doesn't have a place, like jar lid tops or maybe old Tupperware containers where you've lost the mate to it, or maybe it's that favorite broken dish that you're going to get around to super gluing one of these days. Or maybe that clutter's in your closet, all those clothes that you have that you wore 20 years ago and you hope to fit back into one of these days. Or maybe it's in the bottom of your toolbox or out in the garage. All the stuff you just haven't gotten around to cleaning out. Clutter's a funny thing. It comes up in our lives both visibly and invisibly. Do you ever feel sometimes like your whole life is just filled with stuff? You don't know what to do with it. All those things that accumulate. We clean it out, but then in a few weeks or months, it's back again. We have lots of names for it: collectibles, memorabilia, paraphernalia, odds and ends, trinkets, doodads, whatchamacallit, thingamajigs. Whatever we call it, it's all the same. And initially, while it's fun to acquire, later on, it kind of becomes overwhelming and it can drag us down, stifle us, take up too much of our time trying to figure out what to do with it. That's when it becomes clutter. Now, an interesting thing about clutter, clutter carries with it an energy, just like everything else in our homes. Energy is all around us. Everything in the universe contains an energetic force, and that energy has a huge effect on how we feel and subsequently how we act. Items that carry a positive energy, such as flowers or candles or maybe artwork in our homes, can give us strength and put us in a good mood, help us deal with our day-to-day events in a lighter fashion. But then items that pile up in boxes of stuff on the floor, piles of old clothes in the closet, stuff that's shoved into the corner of the basement or the attic or the garage, all that stuff that hasn't been used in years. This is clutter, and that carries with it a negative energy that also affects our thoughts, our moods, and our behavior. It brings us down. That's when we know we have to get busy. That's when it's time to reorganize. Maybe donate, make a trip to the Salvation Army, stuff that maybe still has value. Just get rid of it. Throw the rest away. Rid yourself of this negative energy that's holding you back. Now, some of you may be thinking, gosh, I came to church this morning to hear a feel-good sermon. Now you're telling me I have to go home and wash my windows and clean out the garage? No thanks. Well, relax. The sermon today is not about the physical clutter in our lives. It's about the emotional clutter. It also gets in the way. It's responsible for clouding our thinking and keeping us from experiencing life to its fullest. And often there's a correlation between the two, physical clutter and emotional clutter. Today, I'm not going to talk about the spring cleaning of our homes, even though if you're like me, you can probably think of a million things that need to be done around the house. Today, I'd like to talk about spiritual spring cleaning, the practice of releasing the clutter in our minds, the clutter that no longer serves us well. And I think this is just as important, perhaps even more important, than the physical clutter in our homes. For the cleansing of our minds allows us to create energetic space for new blessings to flow. Letting go and releasing the old thought patterns, the old emotions and hurts, the old habits that are no longer supportive or healthy. This is the stuff that's holding us down. And springtime is the perfect time to reassess what we may be holding on to and then work at releasing it, just letting it go. As mentioned in our responsive readings this morning, cluttered spaces can feel restrictive, even disorienting. We can feel overwhelmed by the accumulation of things, unable to easily access what we need. But when we clear out the physical clutter, we feel lighter, more relaxed, more calm. The same is true with emotional clutter. When we mindfully release these old ways of thinking, of believing, it helps us to clear our minds and allows us to move forward feeling refreshed. We're no longer bogged down with old, worn-out beliefs and past hurts. Don Aslett wrote a book called Clutter's Last Stand. He says it's time to de-junk your life. He says that we should save our sanity, not our sack souvenirs and old worn-out shoes. Clutter can begin to crowd in not only our basements and attics, but also in our relationships and in our personal growth. In his book, he says, lose your clutter, change your life. Clutter negatively influences our lives much more than we realize. Some people can even suffer acute guilt and actual damage from junk that clutters. It stifles us, robs us of our freedom, because it requires so much of our time and energy to deal with it. We end up not having enough time to do the things that we really want to do in life. Maybe take that trip or take that art class. Emotional clutter can be defined as pent-up and unexpressed feelings, unresolved issues, or relationships. It results from not sharing, acknowledging, or expressing our feelings to ourselves or to others, and from judging ourselves or others rather than practicing self-forgiveness. So how do we deal with this? Well, the beauty of metaphysical thinking is that we can look at clutter as being a symbolic reference for all that's no longer working right in our lives. We can look at the clutter as being there to help us focus on the areas that we need to address, the areas that we need to clean out. Again, I'm not talking about our cupboard or closet. I'm talking about our thinking. Remember what we know as metaphysicians. Mind activates principle, which produces results. We first have to think it before it becomes a reality. So look upon your way of thinking as a means of transformation and as a way of beginning your spring cleaning. Think about what clutter might be doing to you. And remember our fourth principle, personal responsibility. We create our own happiness or unhappiness. We could add clutter to this too. We create our own spiritual clutter or lack of clutter as we live in harmony or discord with natural, physical, and spiritual laws. And our spring cleaning can go a long way to helping us achieve greater happiness. No one can do this for us. Only we can do it for ourselves. Are there things that are just emotional junk that are cluttering up your life? Things like worry, anger, gossip, bad habits. Maybe this is a good time to deal with it. Maybe it's time to begin your spring cleaning. Clean out the dust and the cobwebs, the old ways of thinking, doubting, worrying. Make room for the new. Use affirmations to help remind you that you are a child of God. You are one with Spirit. Focus on healing meditations. Take a few minutes each day just to sit quietly and relax. Allow yourself time. And if you happen to fall back into the old ways of thinking or doing or believing, that's okay. Give yourself a break. Don't be too hard on yourself. Realize that it's the universe's way of saying you need to stop and do a little more spring cleaning. Know that letting go is not the end of the world. Instead, it's the beginning of a new life. And as we release the past, we discover newfound energy to help us enjoy the present and work toward creating a brighter future. As we read from Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 and 19, remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Think about your life. Is it time to take stock of what's good, what's working, and what's not working? What is it that you need to release and let go of? Let's use our spiritual dust mops to get rid of no longer what's needed. Create some energetic space for new blessings to flow into our lives. Release the clutter and allow the new, the good to spring forth. And may it be so.